Hello everybody, it's Max McAllister, back with another edition of Cycle with Max, and today we're going to do some more shifting techniques, and today we're going to talk about shifting under a load. In other words, when you have a high amount of pressure on your pedals, how to shift smoothly without damaging your bike. So let's start by saying that everybody, as they learn to ride a bike, experiences horrible clunking, banging, and chunking on their drivetrain. Then it sounds like you're damaging and destroying your bike, and it's because you are. So if you feel like you're hurting your bike, then you are hurting your bike, and but that can be avoided by learning proper shifting techniques and avoiding situations that you can preemptively avoid, so that you don't create a situation where you're going to get put into a situation where you're going to damage your bike, and while trying to get yourself out of a place you should have never been. Now, one of the simplest things to start off by saying requires no technique at all. It requires forethought and for you to be paying attention. And that's to select the gear when possible that you're going to need before you need it. So, if you're running along on a generally flat ground and you see a 10% grade coming up ahead, you know that you're going to need to be in a low gear. And in fact, for most people, you probably need to get off of your big ring and get onto your little ring, because that's going to be very, very difficult for you to go up a hill that steep. So, never try and drop from a big ring to a little ring while climbing, if at all possible. If that's a situation, you've made a pretty grave mistake, so avoid that one at all costs. All right, so let me start by saying that. But past that, if you're coming up to just a gentle hill, 3 to 5%, when you get towards the bottom of it, preemptively shift and just pick up your cadence. It'll only take a moment, and as you go up the hill and your speed decreases, your cadence will generally slow down. But you'll already be closer to the appropriate gear that you want to be in. So don't start shifting once you're on a hill. Start shifting before you get to the hill. Pick your cadence up very high, 100 or 110. If you don't know how to pedal at that high of a cadence, start learning as soon as possible. It's a very useful tool. You don't have to do it constantly, but that's another topic. But you want to have that tool in your toolbox to be able to spool up and then let the hill slow you down, okay, as you go up the hill. And trying to avoid those huge jumps where you're trying to change 3 gears once the bike's already under a load, once your gears are under a load. When I say under a load, that's you pushing really hard on the pedals, all right? So, once you push hard on the pedals, bikes don't like to shift, because what your derailleurs do is they're actually derailing the chain. They're taking the chain and pulling it off of a sprocket where it's perfectly happy being and forcing it to fall somewhere. We're either pulling it somewhere up or dropping it off. And neither of those things, it'll do them just fine as designed when there's no pressure on the bike. The more pressure you put, the harder it is for that to do it. Now, if it's under a lot of pressure and you're trying to change 2 or 3 gears, that's when you hear bikes going clunk, 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 bang, bang, and making all sorts of horrible sounds. And invariably, while that's happening, your bike will slow down dramatically. So if you're in a group, all right, now all of a sudden, all that one bad shift can drop you 10 or 15 feet off of the bike in front of you while your bike's searching for the appropriate gear. Now you back everybody up behind you, and you disturb your group or mess up your lines that you're riding in. So this is just bad cycling craftsmanship, if we will, as a word. So how do we avoid that? And what's the best way to shift under a load? So we've talked about preemptively doing it, getting into the gear you're going to anticipate you need. Next is once you're actually under a load. So say you're climbing up a hill, you're not in an easy enough gear, and you're going to have to go into another easier gear. All right, the technique I want to teach you is I call walking the chain over. Walking it over, and that's what we're going to do. So what you need to do is create a moment in time for the chain, for you to relax your pressure on the chain so that it can move to the next cog and then reapply pressure smoothly. Now, the easiest way to learn something is to break it into steps. I'm going to teach you to break this into mechanical steps while you learn it, but then you'll speed the process up and eventually we'll take one of the steps out altogether. So the very first step, it's going to be natural to you to shift. If you watch how you ride your bike, you're going to shift naturally when one of your feet is coming over the top. You can just watch yourself and figure out which one. Now, once you figure out which shift you have, which foot you've naturally selected to shift with, we're going to take that and we're going to break it down and study it and smooth it out. So what you want to do is, say, just for sake of the camera, and actually I happen to be a right-footed shifter if there is such a thing. What you want to do is, as your foot comes up to horizontal, I want you to pause there and click your shift lever, all right? Whichever way you're going to do it, harder gear or easier gear, it doesn't matter. But since we're going up the hill, we're going to first start with an easier gear. Pause, click the shifter. It's only going to take 1/2 rotation of the cranks to get your bike to change gears, okay? So it will not be very hard. So if I were to go to one easier gear right here, it's only going to take 1/2 turn. My bike is already shifted, okay? There's the 1/2 turn. What I want you to observe is, look where my crank is. It's now in an optimal position for me to push down and continue making power. So all that I've actually relaxed power for is 1/2 of one rotation of the cranks, all right? Now, that won't be enough to disturb any line. Even if you're riding with expert riders someday, you're not going to disturb anyone behind you. They're not even going to notice that you do this once you get it mastered. Okay, so as the crank comes up, while you learn, I want you to pause, shift, walk the chain over. You'll feel it engage, right? And now you're ready to make power again, and then push down normally and go back to pedaling, okay? So it's just going to look like that. At first, you're going to pause, shift, walk the chain over, go back to pedaling. That's all there is to it. All right, so I'm going to hop on and kind of show you what this looks like in the real world. So actually, let me get some resistance here. So I'm on a climb, and I've realized I'm in too hard of a gear. So what it's really going to look like and sound like is, now you can't see me do it because it's seamless. I know that as my foot's coming, I'm going to relax tension while I feed my foot over. I'm just going to relax tension and I shift it. You can't even hear it, you didn't even see it, okay? So, while you learn, pause, shift, walk it over, and go back to pedaling. Pause, shift, walk it over. Just remember, walk it over. You have to relax the pressure, and that's the whole trick. So, now, this can be applied, I'm going back to hard gear. So if you're climbing, right, I'm not in right gear, you can do it seamlessly, all right, while applying pressure. All right, now, going down your cassette into harder gears, unless there's a reason you're literally sprinting, which is not likely for a beginner and intermediate cyclist, you can apply the same technique to avoid just beating on your drivetrain. So, you've all heard this sound, right? Okay, you're just beating on the hub in your bike, and there's no reason for that. Apply the exact same technique I just taught you, except you're going to walk it down into walk it over into an easier gear. So I can shift really hard without beating on the hub. So same technique applies. So try that, called walking it over. Relax the pressure, over 1/2 of a turn, it'll shift gears back to making power. All right, so I'm back. Share this video if you like it, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.